Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Monday, December 8th, 2025. I'm Bobby Kuza in for Errol Lewis. Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman is preparing to announce a run for governor tomorrow, sources tell New York One. Blakeman will be joining Congresswoman Elise Stefanik in the race, setting the stage for two Trump allies to face off in a Republican primary next June. And both will look to challenge Governor Kathy Hochul as she seeks re-election. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan joins me now with tonight's top story. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Bobby. And it's important to note that Republicans in New York were trying to avoid a Republican primary by coming out early and endorsing Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who is a Trump ally. She rose to national spotlight when she was grilling university presidents over their handling of the on-campus protests in relation to the Israel and Hamas war. But Bruce Blakeman, who is also a Trump ally, actually on texting basis with President Donald Trump, is poised to announce his candidacy as early as tomorrow. Sources said that he plans on focusing on affordability and the fight to make energy prices cost less for New Yorkers. But again, this is a problem because now Republicans are worried they'll have to spend more money and split the electorate ahead of next year's June primary. Now, President Donald Trump, who again is a friend to both of these Republicans, was asked whether or not he would weigh into the race. Let's take a listen to what he had to say earlier in Washington, D.C.
Congresswoman Elise Stefanik is among those who is running for New York governor.
She's great.
Bruce Blakeman, who you also know,
he's also great.
Are you planning on making any endorsement?
Well, I'll think about it, but he's great and she's great. They're both great people. We have a lot of great people in the Republican Party. Go ahead.
And so Elise Stefanik's team put out a statement where Stefanik herself said, quote, "Even those in Nassau County who are closest to Bruce Blakeman will tell you that everybody knows Bruce has no shot and is putting his raging ego first and New Yorkers last as he blows up the best opportunity in a generation to save New York." Now, that, of course, comes from Stefanik herself, who already knives her out against a challenger with her shot, or trying to get in front of her shot, to become New York's governor. Now, Stefanik has previously said she was interested in running for governor back in 2022. That nomination ended up going to Lee Zeldin, now the head of the EPA under Trump. And Bobby, you know, Stefanik has been a huge ally of Trump. She almost became the UN ambassador. That ended up falling apart. And, you know, when Governor Kathy Hochul was asked about this earlier today, whether or not she was worried about a Republican primary and just mounting challenge to her own job, let's take a listen to what she had to say.
And let's let them go at it. I mean, let's see how they out-mega each other in a primary. So, no, it doesn't matter which Trump cheerleader decides to run against me. You know, the narrative is the same. You know, it doesn't affect what I do. I'm going to keep governing and showing, you know, what we're doing to deliver for people. You know, that affordability is not a phrase that's denigrated the way Donald Trump seems to not even understand what affordability is. We're actually doing something about it.
So this is a different race, Bobby, than it was in 2022. Then the governor had just come into her role after former Governor Andrew Cuomo resigned in disgrace after the COVID crisis, and Hochul was still learning on the job. She came really close to almost, you know, not being as safe in winning election to a full term because of the crime issue. This is a totally different situation now, where she has a bunch of policy items that were successful under her watch. The Republicans are hoping to tie her to Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, and the fact that he's a Democratic socialist. Of course, that that line of attack was really scuttled by President Donald Trump when Trump met with Mamdani in the Oval Office, and he said, you know, actually, I would live in a New York under Mamdani, and this guy doesn't seem that bad. He seems kind of rational, to paraphrase. But if you talk to Bruce Blakeman, who is Nassau County executive, he knows downstate perhaps better than the upstate Republican Stefanik. It just provides additional pressure on Hochul to deliver on those promises of affordability. A lot can change in a year. There's a Republican in the White House, which typically means it's good for the Democrats. But again, Bobby, you know, here, actually, this video is pretty good. Last year, I took this at a Republican event, actually not last year, last April, where Stefanik was getting an award from the state Republican Party, and Bruce Blakeman was right up in front. and now they're running against each other.
Does Kathy Hochul have a point, though, that they're going to try to out-MAGA each other and sort of bloody each other and use, waste time and resources rather than Stefanik directing that at her?
Right. A primary is the best thing that could happen to Hochul, to any Democratic candidate, because it means that the Republicans are dividing what little spoils they have to their disposal, which again is dollar amounts, the financial power, as well as voter registration. Democrats outweigh Republicans in New York, especially in New York City. And Republicans can't afford to have split focus, especially in New York City, in the 5 boroughs, and especially in on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley. Stefanik has some work to do, needless to say, especially in the 5 boroughs and in the metropolitan area. She can't afford to lose Long Island. And if you talk to the state Republican Party, they're also all in for Stefanik because, again, they don't want that split focus. And they want their chances to be as good as they possibly can be. And having a vicious primary cycle doesn't help that. But if you listen to Trump earlier today in D.C., he didn't discourage Blakeman from running. He said both are great. He has personal relationships with both of them. But still, it remains to be seen if Trump will weigh in on this and if it will change the course of the race.
Yeah. All right. Bernadette Hogan, thank you so much for that report. Meanwhile, Zohran Mamdani is moving up to the east side. The mayor-elect announced today that he and his wife will reside in Gracie Mansion, saying goodbye to the rent-stabilized Astoria apartment that he currently calls home. It's a decision that most mayors-elect make after deliberation, sometimes with consternation. Our Dan Rivley joins me now with the details on that story. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Bobby. Not just moving to Gracie Mansion, but actually giving up the rent-stabilized apartment completely. He'll no longer be a resident there even after his time in Gracie Mansion is over. So Mamdani, like most other mayors, made the decision to move to Gracie Mansion after weeks of consideration and consultation with his wife. This has been something most mayors have contemplated, even with some deliberations, but they all end up in the same place, Gracie Mansion.
That's wild. I just had no idea.
A newcomer to Astoria, Aaron Cristo, learning that Zohran Mamdani lives on the same street as him.
We're big fans of his, and that's just cool. Cool to know he's in the neighborhood.
But not for long. Mamdani announced he will move to Gracie Mansion with his wife in January.
It's a nice spot. I'd take it if given the opportunities.
For Mamdani, it was an issue of practicality, saying in a statement, "This decision came down to our family's safety and the importance of dedicating all of my focus on enacting the affordability agenda New Yorkers voted for." A resident in Mamdani's building said the move was expected.
I wish him the best of luck. We'll miss the highs and buys.
Mamdani moved to the one-bedroom rent-stabilized Astoria apartment in 2018 and has been paying $2,300 a month. In his statement, Mamdani got sentimental about the neighborhood, its residents, and its food. His transition team provided a list of establishments he enjoys, like Sammy's Kebab House and Boishaki. One diner there said he hopes Mamdani remembers to visit.
Now, these are his people who put him there in the office, right? So he should always remember them. What goes around comes around, right?
Gracie Mansion has been home to 9 mayors, starting with Fiorello LaGuardia.
It is, in many ways, the heart of the city, and this is where all the decisions are made.
Yet some mayors are apprehensive. Mayor Bill de Blasio of Brooklyn was concerned about how a move from the outer boroughs, as he put it, would look politically. Mayor Michael Bloomberg raised money to renovate Gracie Mansion, but never spent a night there and thought it should be a space for the public. Mayor Ed Koch made the move, but kept his rent-controlled pad in the West Village. Still, there's just something unique about Gracie.
It's quiet. It's away from reporters, and you just it gives you time to look at all the angles of an important decision.
I asked George Arts if he had a piece of advice for Mamdani once he makes the move to Gracie. He said, hire a great cook. Apparently, Bobby, the kitchen at Gracie Mansion is really nice.
Well, he's gonna have a lot more space for sure as well. I mean, it sounds like I would imagine that just the logistics of this are also a huge consideration, right? I mean, you have a security detail. If he was staying in that big apartment building, it's going to cause a huge disruption to his neighbors.
You'd have to come up with a security plan from scratch, right? The neighbors would be put out. You can imagine the protests, the reporters, the police presence. So this made a lot of practical sense. And with Gracie Mansion, the men and women of the NYPD who protect the mayor who lives there, they know that job. They have the security plan.
I saw some speculation as to whether this wouldn't play well with Mamdani's base because he's, a man of the people and he's going to go live on his mansion on the Upper East Side. I mean, is that a factor, do you think?
I can't imagine. No, everyone I spoke to wished him well. They said, hey, I would take it too. You heard that gentleman say, I'd take it too. De Blasio had the same considerations. He owned, I think it was like a 2-family townhouse in Park Slope. He really saw himself as an outer borough guy. He owns a property, he drives, and he thought moving to Gracie would kind of cramp his style as he saw it, kind of like that middle-class mayor. And he made the move anyway. I really don't think that matters. Although what he did get grief for was constantly commuting back to Park Slope to go to his favorite gym at the YMCA. We'll have to see what Mamdani's personal schedule will be like if he continues to make trips back to Astoria. He's only lived there for just a handful of years. He didn't grow up there. But he does have an affinity for the neighborhood. And, we'll have to see if, how Astoria stays in his heart, so to speak.
Right. All right, Dan Rivoli, thank you so much for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, we will bring you a closer look at a new initiative in Mayor Adams' final weeks in office to make city government more language friendly. And later, I'll be joined by an expert in public health policy to talk about a new report that shows the city's population has not yet rebounded from the COVID pandemic. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost. And that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure. Why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Mayor Adams says he isn't going to sit idly by as his time in office comes to an end this month. Earlier today, he announced plans to make city government more language friendly. Our Kelly Mena joins me now with that story. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Bobby. And he said this months ago that he wanted to come up with an initiative that would be easier for non-English speakers to interact with city agencies. And with today's announcement, he's hoping that language barriers can be eliminated.
It was just important that we say to New Yorkers, we hear you. Not only your sounds, but what you are saying.
Mayor Adams hears from New Yorkers daily, but now he wants to understand them too. As part of his final days in office, he unveiled a directive that will put a translation application on all city-owned phones.
Your inability to communicate really prevents you from wanting to access government services, and it's just unfair.
Adams was joined by two of his top appointees, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch and the school's Chancellor Melissa Aviles Ramos. It will be up to the incoming administration to decide whether the technology stays running or shut down. There could be some hope as Tisch will continue her tenure at the NYPD, while Aviles Ramos reportedly is hoping to stay on.
Families are our students' first teachers, and they belong at the table when decisions are being made about their children's education.
But not everyone is looking to their future at City Hall. First Deputy Mayor Randy Mastro tendered a resignation letter on Friday, writing in part, "While I told the press months ago that I will never work for a socialist, the mayor-elect's transition team needlessly included me and you last week on a list of 179 City Hall staffers it intends to replace on January 1st, 2026. No need to have done so. We will be leaving city government together." Mastro has been a public critic of Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. In September, he endorsed ex-Governor Andrew Cuomo in the mayor's race while characterizing Mamdani as an existential crisis coming for the city.
We can disagree about which Democrat we like better, but I respect your decision, and I hope you will respect mine.
And in that letter, Mastro said that his resignation would be effective just before midnight on December 31st, right before the new mayor is obviously sworn into office, Bobby.
I mean, it's almost seemed gratuitous, the letter and taking the shot at Mamdani, because he's submitting his resignation, but he's not actually leaving till December 31st, which is when he would have left anyway.
Right. I mean, as we know, his replacement has already been named, which is Dean Fullahan. So he had no chances of staying on, and I don't think anybody else was going to ask him to stay past that time. But I think for him, it was just an opportunity to make sure that before he leaves office, he's able to publicly state maybe some of his criticisms of the incoming administration. And also, as part of that resignation letter, it was 5 pages long, he talked about some of the wins that he's had in his months in office. Unlike some of the other members of the administration, he has been there less than a year, about 9 months. He started earlier this year. And so he wanted to also highlight that, his achievements when it comes to some of the initiatives he's been able to get, the housing wins he's been able to get. So I think that was also part of his strategy there, Bobby.
And now that the mayor is sort of on his way out the door, has his relationship with the reporters gotten any less contentious in his final days?
You know, Bobby, I'm not sure that it's moved in any type of way, either for the better or for the worse. Earlier today, we were able to ask him some questions on topic. We weren't able to ask any off-topic questions, but it did get a little bit contentious when the mayor was asked about his Immigrant Affairs Commissioner, Manuel Castro, who was at today's press conference. There was actually, at the same time as they were announcing this initiative for language barriers and eliminating that, the city council was having their own committee meeting on some immigration bills related to data and privacy. And actually, one of the council members, Stephanie Caban, confronted Manuel Castro about his non-attendance at that immigration committee meeting and why he couldn't be there. And the mayor was asked why his commissioner wasn't there, and he defended him, saying that, you know, he has a right to go, to not attend, to do what he thinks is important, and he trusts his decision making.
We know Mastro is definitely leaving. Some of those other commissioners, I mean, like you mentioned, some of them may or may not be staying on under a Mamdani administration.
Yeah, I mean, we know that the police commissioner is definitely going to stay on, but we saw the school's chancellor there. There's reporting that she wants to stay on. We know that there could be some big changes when it comes to the city's public school system related to mayoral control. And so whoever takes the helm of that is going to be definitely an issue that many people are going to be watching. And there's also some other positions that still need filling. we know who the first deputy mayor is going to be, but there's also other deputy mayors for health and human services, for housing and economic development. So still some places to fill out. We know that the Mamdani transition team has reached out to some of these high-level commissioners. Whether they'll stay on or they'll go somewhere else, we'll have to wait and see as those announcements and that rollout happens. You know, being elected mayor comes with a lot of responsibility, and there's thousands of positions that you have to fill. And so that's something that Mamdani will have to do in these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's got a lot of work to do. All right, Kelly Mena, thank you so much for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, we will talk about today's Supreme Court hearing about the president's ability to fire independent government officials. We'll bring you the details next. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard. At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The Supreme Court's conservative majority appears open to giving President Donald Trump more power to fire independent government officials, whose jobs are supposed to be shielded from politics. The case is part of a push by the president to exert sweeping control over the federal bureaucracy, giving even more power to the White House. Spectrum News national political reporter Taylor Popolars joins me now from outside the White House with the very latest. Good evening, Taylor.
Good evening, Bobby. A defining feature of President Trump's first year back in office has been trying to expand presidential powers and authority, and that's exactly what the Solicitor General, who is the attorney acting on behalf of the Trump administration, argued before the justices today. It's the latest example where this conservative-leaning court seems open to it. The Supreme Court heard more than 2 hours of arguments Monday in a case brought by Rebecca Slaughter, a Democrat on the Federal Trade Commission fired without cause by President Donald Trump. The U.S. Solicitor General argued that giving the president more control over independent agencies is a matter of accountability.
The real-world consequences here are human beings exercising enormous governmental authority with a great deal of control over individuals and business, small and large businesses and so forth, who ultimately do not answer to the president. That's a power vacuum. The president is answerable to the voters. They have no boss.
The three liberal-leaning justices pushed back.
You're asking us to destroy
the structure of government and to take away from Congress its ability to protect its idea that the government is better structured with some agencies that are independent.
At stake is the makeup of more than 24 federal agencies that have been insulated from politics for decades, like the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the National Transportation Safety Board. Slaughter's attorney argued everything could be on the chopping block if a president is granted more power over agencies created and overseen by Congress.
If they really pose this fundamental threat to the republic, petitioners could take their argument across the street and Congress could solve the problem tomorrow. They're not willing to do that.
The conservative-leaning justices seemed skeptical of maintaining the status quo.
The real world of this is the independent agency shifts power from the presidency to the Congress. Everyone recognizes that.
Georgetown law professor Victoria Nurse says the question will be how broadly the justices embrace presidential power in this case.
The court has shown this, that it is sympathetic to firing independent agency members. And I think that it believes that these agencies are not accountable.
Now, at the center of this case is a 90-year-old court decision known as Humphrey's Executor, which has limited who presidents can fire from these independent agencies. But during today's arguments, Chief Justice John Roberts referred to the decision as, quote, a dry husk. And that really stood out to people to give an indication of how he's feeling about it. Bobby?
So, Taylor, I mean, at issue here in some of these cases is the balance of power between the White House and the Congress. But because congressional leadership is so aligned with the president and so willing to defer to him, it's kind of a moot point in some of these cases, right?
That's right, and that's something that the three liberal-leaning justices brought up throughout today's arguments, saying that Congress has really ceded much of its power throughout this year since President Trump returned to office because House and Senate Republican leadership don't want to frustrate the president and basically want to go along with what he's saying. But a big argument during a big point during these arguments was that these agencies were created by Congress, they are overseen by Congress, and we have a system of government where there are three branches and they're supposed to be separate but equal. But the Solicitor General argued that it is the Trump administration's view that the president should have the ultimate authority in this case for who serves on these boards, and they're hoping that this 90-year precedent will be upended.
All right, Taylor Popolars outside the White House, thank you so much for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, New York City's population decline has yet to fully recover from the COVID pandemic. I will break it down with a public health policy expert from the Empire Center next. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Bergman.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network. And factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. New York's population has still not fully rebounded 5 years after the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's according to a new report by the nonpartisan think tank, the Empire Center for Public Policy. The findings show that the city is still less populated today than it was in 2020. As you can see in this graph, the 5 boroughs lost 262,000 residents since the start of the decade, a number much higher than other parts of the state and other parts of the country. And while the city did see some growth over the last 2 years, it has still only recovered about 1/3 of its population loss. Joining me now is Bill Hammond. He is the author of the report and a senior fellow at the Empire Center for Public Policy. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Bobby. Pleased to be here.
So talk about what's going on here. I think about something that Mayor Adams talks about a lot, especially when he was running for re-election, which is that the city has rebounded from COVID. There's a record number of jobs here in the city, but it sounds like maybe the data tells a different story.
I mean, I think there are signs of a rebound, and in many ways the city recovered. In fact, it recovered more than I would have expected it to after what happened in 2020, which was just harrowing. But according to the census, the population is still down, as you said, by about 3%. And so what happened was in the first 2 years after the pandemic, I mean, including 2021 and 2022, 384,000 people moved out, and we're still down 262,000. So that, you know, there's still quite a few people who have remained away as things stand.
Right, and I mean, there's a sense that there was a lot of New Yorkers who moved away during the pandemic. You know, maybe these were wealthier New Yorkers who had a second home they could flee to, but that those people maybe made their way back to the city eventually. But clearly that hasn't been the full picture, right?
Well, what the census indicates is that the Bronx, which is not a center of well-to-do New Yorkers, is the borough that took the largest hit. And the one borough that managed to grow during this period was Staten Island. So the Bronx, followed by Queens and Brooklyn, lost people. Manhattan lost a few people. Staten Island managed to grow. So, I mean, it's kind of a mix of things going on, because you had, during the same period, you had an influx of international migrants. In fact, a record high number of international migrants in 2024. And that would include the people who were shipped into the city from Texas and Florida. But the key factor and the thing driving the population loss in New York City and the state as a whole is what's called domestic outmigration. People who live in New York moving to other states. More of them were moving out than moving in, and that's what caused the overall population to shrink.
Right, and yeah, I think we've got a graphic that shows some of that, because there's different factors, obviously, that go into population growth. There's the birth rate versus the death rate, and that was still in positive territory. And like you said, there was still immigration from other countries, but it's the domestic outmigration, which, you know, is probably consists of a lot of people who are priced out of New York. And if I remember right, the report said that Florida is the #1 destination. That's where more people have fled to than any other place, right?
In this 4-year period, well, actually it covers the first 3 years. We don't have 2024 data yet. But yeah, Florida was #1. It used to be the #1 was always New Jersey, which makes a lot of sense. It's right across the river. It's an easy commute. But no, now it's Florida. And I think that they're like there's a lot of things going on at once. You mentioned being priced out. I think people also might have been freaked out, right? The New York City was a very scary place for a few months there in the early part of the pandemic. But then there's also this phenomenon of working from home. And Manhattan is a real office-based economy. If you don't have to be near your place of work, you can work from your computer in Nevada and still have a job in New York City. That kind of changes the dynamics.
So, you know, the city, of course, has, as we said, has struggled with recovery. New York State overall has also struggled. I think it's something like 2% population decline compared to pre-pandemic, which is the worst of any state in the country besides West Virginia, according to the report. I mean, it wasn't so long ago New York was the third most populous state in the country. Now it's far behind Florida in fourth place. Talk a little bit about the political repercussions, because obviously fewer people means less and less power in Washington.
Well, the decennial census in 2020 and in the next one will be in 2030 is what's used to determine how many representatives each state has in Congress and also how many seats it has in the Electoral College. And as things stand now, it looks like New York will lose another seat or two. It's been part of the problem. It's not just that New York has been shrinking or stagnant. It's that other states have been growing faster, especially Texas and Florida. They've been gaining people, not just from New York, but from all, just in general. And it's because we are like our size is shrinking relative to the rest of the country, and that's causing us to lose our clout in Washington.
Is there any way, and I know you guys don't get deep into this in the report, but is there any way to account for the high housing costs? I mean, we continue to see this housing crisis here in the city. You would think we're losing people, and therefore there's less demand, less strain on housing here in the city, and yet costs have continued to go up. Any idea how we account for that?
Well, I think for one thing, you have to ask yourself how much more the housing might have gone up if the population hadn't declined. But you're right, there are conflicting forces going on. So yeah, I can't explain why. I think there was a dip in housing prices very early in the pandemic, if I remember correctly, but things have bounced back in that regard. I think one phenomenon you have in New York that is a little unusual is you have people who buy housing in New York as an investment property. I don't know what share of the market that would be, but it would account for, housing being in short supply even if people are not.
Talk a little bit about what this all means for policy. I mean, the report touched on this a little bit. It mentioned there should be a concern, a focus on affordability. We got to see a little bit of that now from Governor Kathy Hochul and, of course, from the mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. I mean, is that a sign that we're on the right track when it comes to retaining and growing population?
Well, I think there's different ways of thinking about the word affordability. I think the way the governor is using it, and certainly the mayor is using it, they mean when something's expensive, government should subsidize, they should give you money to help you pay for it. I think another meaning of affordability, which I think is probably the more salient meaning in this situation, is to stop adding to the cost of things in the first place, to stop the different things that add to costs would include taxes. New York has some of the highest taxes in the country, and then also regulations that add to the expense of, say, building a new home or starting a business. I think another thing to think about is economic opportunity. When people move to the Southwest, or to Florida, they will sometimes mention the climate, but often the driving thing is that they can find a job in those places. And New York has fewer jobs available for people who are getting started in life. And so again, the business climate is another big factor. So the approach that the governor and the mayor, it's good to hear them talking about affordable
public policy. Thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, it is time now for a break. Coming up, we will turn back to the mayoral transition when I'm joined by two top consultants. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
In Focus with Cheryl Wills, a weekly show discussing decisions and potential solutions for issues making an impact in your community and your city. If it's important to New Yorkers, then it's being talked about here. In Focus with Cheryl Wills, Sunday mornings at 10:30 on New York One.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are turning back to our top story. Sources tell New York One that Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman will be joining Congresswoman Elise Stefanik in the race for governor. That means two Trump allies will face off in the Republican primary next June. Both will be challenging Governor Kathy Hochul's re-election bid. And joining me now to talk more about this and more are the two members of this week's Consultants Corner. Democratic consultants Trip Yang and Tyrone Stevens are joining me tonight. Thank you both for being here. So this really throws a wrench in the gubernatorial race next year. I mean, Elise Stefanik thought she had sort of a clear path to the Republican nomination. Now, Trip, we're going to have a lot of fireworks next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Today's a great day for Governor Kathy Hochul because Elise Stefanik, this is another indication that the Congresswoman simply is not ready for prime time. Look, she announced her candidacy for governor a month ago. She announced with a website for a campaign that wasn't functioning properly. She announced with Donald Trump later that month in the Oval Office having a bromance with Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, saying, no, he's not a jihadist. He seems like a swell guy. Completely putting cold water on Elise Stefanik's #1 campaign attack, tying Mamdani to the governor. And finally today, as we've known for a while, she has failed to clear the Republican field despite undivided fealty to Donald Trump and a 100% MAGA voting record. Elise Stefanik is your night's biggest loser.
Well said. What more can I add to that? Listen, so this is tradition. It's about security. I think even he noted that this is security concerns that make this easier to manage. Essentially located. And look, this is the mayor's crash pad, command center, and civic stage, right? Like this is where this is where like he sends the message to the people of New York that I'm on the job every hour of the day, and it only makes sense that this is where where he.
What I like about this decision is that we get to know about this in December. It's not like a decade ago with Bill de Blasio. He had the New York City press corps, going on right, for months deciding where the mayor is. Yeah. Thankfully, he doesn't have to put you guys through that again. But look, here's what I like about Zohran, the mayor-elect. If you notice in his statement, he addressed the question And then he went back to his central message about affordability. Look, Zohran Mamdani is so disciplined. If you were to hypothetically ask him, you know, Mr. Mayor-elect, who's more likely to win the Super Bowl in the next 10 years, the New York Jets or the New York Giants? He would say, you know what? Right now I'm focused on freezing the rent, making life more affordable, and I'll go talented. I really respect that.
I think it's a sort of a trademark of what we're seeing in this transition, where he's trying to prove, you know, an insurgent can run the city, right? And it's discipline over vibes, and I think that's, you know, that's been conveyed throughout, you know, so many of the moves he's making in this transition process.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk more about the mayoral transition, but we got to take a break. I'll have much more to talk about with these consultants when we return. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by my Consultants Corner, Democratic consultants Trip Yang and Tyrone Stevens. So let's continue talking about the Mamdani transition. You still got a lot of work to do. I mean, as of now, we only know about a very small handful of his team, his chief of staff, first deputy mayor, and his police commissioner, of course, Jessica Tisch. A lot more work to do, and there's only a few weeks till inauguration. What are you looking for?
So I think what you've seen from Mamdani's transition so far is that it's a mix of bringing in very experienced bureaucrats who know city government, such as the first deputy mayor, who held a similar role with de Blasio administration, as well as chief of staff Al, who was the chief of staff in the assembly. She's a DSA member. So really blending folks who are very experienced with city government as folks who are real, authentic progressives in that world, that have credibility in the leftist space. It's smart so far.
Yeah, he's hiring experienced folks and folks who have experience with him, and melding that together, which will be conducive to running a smooth operation over at City Hall. And look, for right now, I think he compares relatively well to his predecessors in terms of being at this point in the transition, in terms of high-level hires. The police commissioner's hired, the first deputy's hired, and the chief of staff's been named. I think they're going to go through the high-level appointments first and really kind of be very deliberate and thoughtful through that process. But I think what we've learned is he takes a very deliberate, cautious approach, on these hires. He's really he's approaching this job so far, at least, with the sense that governing the city is bigger than leading the movement, so to speak, right? That this is a big enough job that we have to get it right, and these hires are what's going to make a successful mayoralty.
So there was this Q&A with reporters last week when Mamdani was asked about these police sweeps of homeless encampments that the Adams administration has conducted for years, and he said he's not going to do that when he's mayor, which I don't think was a surprise. I mean, it would have been bigger news if he said he was actually going to do sweeps of homeless encampments. Geez. But, that got a lot of attention. What does that tell us? I mean, it seems like every decision he makes, especially where it pertains to policing, is going to be so closely scrutinized. And then people are going to be ready to pounce the minute there's, some kind of high-profile incident, whether it's a homeless person who's mentally ill or, anything.
So here's the dynamic right now going on in City Hall, is that Mamdani's going to get judged in 2026 on his success based on two things. One is that can he fulfill or start to fulfill his central plank of affordability? If he does it, I believe you'll see him be an asset to national Democrats in the fight for Congress. That's very, very key. And also framing his relationship with the city council for the next 4 years. The other moment is where on the subject of safety, he's talked about Department of Community Safety. He's talked about having a different vision that law enforcement are part of, but not the only solution. One, this is not a surprise that he would have a differing policy from the Adams administration. But two, what he really has to do is really demonstrate that he takes safety very seriously and that he's able to implement his vision, which I am very confident that the mayor-elect will do. Ultimately, he's going to be judged if the quality of life is going to be improved. And the final thing I'll say, when it comes to homelessness, this is a state and a federal issue as much as it is a city one. There have been decades of disinvestment in homelessness programs from the federal government, state government, and city government across Republican and Democratic administrations. So if he shows progress, that's going to be very sufficient for many.
All right, I'll make sure to bring a napkin for you. But to your point, you mentioned the state. And I think this is in terms of how the governor and how the mayor-elect have talked about this issue. You do see a divergence, right? Mayor-elect Mamdani speaks about this as a moral issue. Stop the sweeps. It's not a policing issue. It's a housing crisis. It's a homelessness issue. And Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams, to the extent that he has as well, he's taken out this position of this is an issue of stability, that public disorder, erodes confidence. So these are two competing arguments. We'll see how they play out. I think what you'll see, though, is that even with some public disagreement, some public distance between the governor and the mayor on this, that there will be private collaboration to the extent that they can because these problems are too big to ignore. She's running for re-election. He's trying to put wins on the board in his first year as mayor. There's a lot of incentive to try to actually do something positive on this front.
And you mentioned Mayor Adams. I mean, Mayor Adams on Friday put out a video specifically to rebuke Mamdani on this question of the homeless encampments, and which, by the way, is just another thing that we've seen in these last few weeks where we're not seeing the most graceful transition from the Adams administration to a Mamdani administration.
Look, I don't know respectfully where our outgoing mayor, where his location was when he tweeted out. Was he in Israel? Was he in Uzbekistan? Was he in Turkey? I'm not really sure because in all seriousness, look, we've got about 3 weeks left of this administration, really 2 weeks if you take out the holidays. It doesn't really matter what the outgoing mayor thinks. We're ready for the Mamdani administration here in New York.
Yeah, I think you're seeing the mayor come to terms with his shrinking impact. And look, I do think it is worth at least pausing to acknowledge it. Like you just said, Bobby, it is striking the tone that the mayor has taken during the course of this transition. I mean, think about it. They had a meeting, a transition meeting, Mayor-elect Mamdani and Mayor Adams at Gracie Mansion, and the mayor refused to have any photos taken. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is having meetings with Mamdani at the White House, and he's posting photos with just Mamdani in it, just posing and all this sort of stuff. I mean, he's treating him better than the current mayor is. It's a fascinating split screen to watch.
All right, guys, we got to leave it there. Tyrone Stevens, Trip Yang, thank you guys both for joining us tonight. And that is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great evening. We will see you the next time on Inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything.
Hey, brother. Be careful.
Movies.
I've got this condition where I don't feel pain.
You're a superhero.
No.
Series.
There was another murder in the building.
Sports. Reality.
Here's to a summer you'll never forget.
News.
Here's a look at today's top story.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
Even more of your favorites with live TV.
Welcome into First Take.
Stream across your devices and watch anywhere. At home or out and about. It's the entertainment experience you've been waiting for.